Excuse me, you know I beg your pardon for this interruption. Now back to regularly scheduled programming.
Hello, welcome to Dice Illusions. This is session number 11 of our ongoing Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition campaign, Fool's Landing, set in the Forgotten Realms. Thank you for watching. Thank you to my players. And the reason I'm here, rather than our normal format, is because I have an apology to make, failing my proficiency check in using the OBS software to record this episode correctly. In my fumbling and anxiousness, I made a mistake, did not get the audio recorded from my players.
A mistake I don't mean to duplicate tonight.
I wasn't finished.
So therefore, the footage itself is not really greatly watchable.
I'm averting my eyes, O Lord.
Well, don't.
And that's very unfortunate because in this particular episode, we were honored to have a guest appearance from the man that brought all of us together actually on our own virtual tabletop through his own channel on the Dungeon Musings stream. And that is, of course, Mr. Kevin Madison, who joined us and played a NPC that I had previously inserted into the adventure, and he graciously joined in, read up on the campaign, and was an absolute blast for all of us to be able to play with Kevin. And what I will attempt to do is speak a little bit over top of the recording to highlight what we did on this particular adventure. I'm going to fast forward through it so that you don't have to just listen to a lot of empty air, as again the recording didn't work for my players, and that is my bad, not theirs. So without further ado, we'll kind of jump into a fast forward version of session 11, of Fool's Landing in Faerun, and we'll see where that goes from there. Thank you for watching.
Get on with it.
Yes, get on with it!
Alright, here we are at the virtual tabletop on Roll20, and again we are session 11, Fool's Landing. I've got the guys paused here from the recording and gonna go left to right on the screen to introduce each of the players and their character briefly. First is Adam. He is playing Bart, a human cleric, level 3. Follower of the Lady of the Mists, Lyra. Next is Brian, who's playing Lee, a human druid, level 3. Third, we have Chris, who is playing Kurza, the elven wizard, level 2. Next up is Ronnie. He is played by Rodolfo, and Ronnie is a level 3, almost 4 halfling rogue. And then last but not least is Vitaly Kavalis, who is played by our newest member of the table, Luke, half-elven cleric, level 2. So that makes up the table for this particular session. When we start out in this campaign, the party is still at sea in the Sea of Fallen Stars, the Inner Sea in Faerun. We'll see that we'll cut over to that map here in just a moment and sort of show and chart the path that the party has taken up to this point. You can see they left Westgate and headed east towards the Isle of Presper. Along the way, they have been exploring a Sahagin lair. They found a dwarven ancient ruin called Talmanthar, and they are at this point aboard a vessel headed towards Raven's Bluff and headed northeast in the Sea of Fallen Stars. So yeah, we're doing a recap here. So again, here we cover the current levels of all the players who were here. We got level 3, level 2. This is our calendar you can see that we're in the month of Flame Rule, Summertide, and we are in the second week of the month, somewhere between, or a couple weeks away from the Midsummer Festival. Our session picked up aboard the vessel where the party had been picked up at sea. At this point, there are members of the Cormyrian Purple Dragons, their royal guards, and some of the Cormyrian knights are showing some aggression towards the party, who have found themselves sort of huddled up in the back of the ship, and they begin to do some exploring. They weren't feeling well at this point. The group had been poisoned by something that they had eaten in the prior episode, and so at this point they took it upon themselves to begin to investigate this. I think they had done some healing as well here, just to kind of make sure that they were able to survive the effects, and they were. So, yeah, here the party makes their way out. They begin talking to some of the deckhands aboard the ship. They hear a sound, and they decide to go down one level to inspect what's going on. When they get down to the bottom level, they can see that there's some disturbance here on this level. It sounds like some shouting, and someone is accusing somebody of something from what the group can gather. And as they head down, they see, for the first time, they're introduced to Vitali. And Vitali is Luke, our newest member. He is down here on this level, and he has actually confronted one of the deckhands that he believes to have potentially poisoned the food supply. And so Vitali relays this information to the group, and there's a great exchange here, some really good role playing from the whole team, as far as introducing their characters, talking about their ultimate mission, and then there is a moment when it becomes observed that each of the party members has a covered arm, and in Vitali, noticing this, inquires about it and exposes the fact that he is also marked with this tattoo marking on his forearm as well. And so the party shares with him that they are all in the same boat, literally and figuratively here. So again, they get introduced, and Vitali joins the ranks of the team here, and they decide to report up to the captain what they'd found. At that point, I think they do a little bit more investigation in and around the ship to try to figure out who was responsible, who knew about it, and whether or not there are any of the fire knives on board, which at this point the party has been informed are responsible for the markings. You'll notice at this point in the session, Kevin has not yet joined us. In the background, I was talking with Kevin on Discord. He was listening to the group. We sold it that I had someone listening in who was going to potentially join, and there were really no questions. We were able to slide that by, and so Kevin was able to observe all of this, to listen to all of this. I should say, when the group finishes their investigation, they head to the top deck, and when they get there, they're seeing a very thick wall of fog surrounding really everything, and it just is actually known as the Veil, and it is a phenomenon that occurs in and around the Ravens Bluff area, and the group just so happens to be passing in that direction as the Veil is rolling over the water. And as the party is up trying to help the captain and the crew get oriented so that they can close in on the port of Ravensbluff, this is where, in the mist, Bart is able to see a vision through the mist, as if and hear a voice in his mind that tells him he lives. And just as quickly as he sees this and hears this, it dissolves and goes back to the mist. We take our intermission. The party at this point is approaching the port of Raven's Bluff. When they pull into Raven's Bluff, give them some perspective on the size of the city. The fog breaks right before they're able to get to the port, so they arrive at the port and basically see this big reveal of a giant metropolis, or growing metropolis, of about 20,000 residents, and it is bustling. They come to the port, aboard their ship with Captain Winnick. They make port there at the dock, and you can see here in Raven's Bluff, as they arrive at the dock, they're actually greeted by a contingent of guard, and you see some, at this point, purple dragons, again the Knights of Cormyr, who appear to be waiting for their arrival. It's unclear at this point if they're being taken against their will, or if they're going along with this. There's some tension. The party isn't sure, exactly where this is leading, but they do want to counsel with Cadison, and ultimately that's where they're going to be heading, to the House of Vespers, to meet with Cadison in the Ten Towers district of Ravensbluff. Captain Winnick has an exchange with one of the lieutenants from the guard. Appears that they've got some background with one another, and ultimately the group is able to be escorted through town. Ravensbluff, they're observing different districts of the city, temples, stores, all kinds of activity that's kind of building and mounting as the city is kind of preparing for the Midsummer Festival, and the party is making haste through the city over to the Ten Towers district, as you can see here. The dwarves that they saved in Talmanthar, Jaitu, and Ursake are along for the walk. Somewhere between the docks and the House of Vespers, the dwarves slip away, and there's a whole thing there that maybe the group will pursue or not pursue, but they ultimately arrive in the House of Vespers, and this was the big moment, the big reveal, where at this point they still didn't know Kevin Madison was lurking on the Discord, listening to our every word, and I made a little bit of room at the top of the screen here in Roll20 so that Kevin could pop in and I could add his video to the session. So here's the part where, again, the sock puppet comes in, and you'll see some grins and some people sitting up here as everyone starts to realize that Kevin Madison is actually at the table speaking to the group, and Kevin called out to them when they entered the hall in a very dramatic fashion, and the party actually thought that it was a recording that I'd gotten Kevin to make, and so it was hilarious that it wasn't a recording, of course, and that Kevin was able to respond to that and at the same time simultaneously hop into the Roll20 table. So we were absolutely thrilled at this point. Everybody was very surprised. I think I did score a high roll on my surprise to get the party. I know that they were pretty shocked. They had some excellent comments afterwards as well, and we were all buzzing from this. But this was just a fantastic bit of role playing where everybody got a chance to interact with Kevin and Cadison, his character, and report back to Cadison what had transpired on their journey since they'd last seen him on the Sea of Fallen Stars, where he sent them off to investigate this Sahagin lair and the activity there at the Sahagin lair. So they are able to relay everything they had seen to Cadison. Cadison at that point it inquires about some of the lost members from the party, and he learns about their fate, and he follows through on his promise to reward them. and at that point he brings out a chest with some gold, a few items that he has sort of hand selected for each of the party members, and he goes through and provides each of them with those items and a soft explanation of what they do so that they have some understanding. The conversation then turns back to the fire knives and the tattoo that is marking each of the characters. Cadison provides them with more information about its meaning. At this point they learn it's an azure bond, and that it is essentially a curse on them that will cause them to act in chaotic ways that are aggressive to the kingdom of Cormyr, of which Cadison is a member and high-ranking official. So this discussion goes on for a bit before the group and Cadison are taken by surprise a little bit by Winnick, the captain, who appears somewhat displeased with the payment that is going to the party, and seems to have something going on up his own sleeve where he actually has set up an ambush and is turning on his former friend Cadison and the party as well. So at this point, Winnick and Cadison have an exchange. It is made clear that Cadison and Winnick are not going to be able to reconcile this, and that an ambush ensues. And so you see at this point several other figures who enter into the building and surround the group from various levels and various directions, and we break from this into the combat map. We started battle. You can kind of see the group is huddled up together. This was just so much fun. You know, we got the turn order going, group initiative rolled. We have, of course, you know, Kevin playing Cadison there in the center of the map, and then the party there next to him. On the balcony on the south end there were 3 lizard men who emerged. You can see positioned throughout the chamber there are knights marked with the purple oval, and those are the purple dragons that are supposedly loyal to Cadison. However, these other figures are fire knives and allies of Winnick's who have come in for the ambush. And so this is again where we start to have turn order, and everybody's acting here to counter the assault. And we get the very first thing that happens is that Lee charges towards Winnick, and the first notable thing I should say, and when she does, she actually stabs Winnick in the back and injures Winnick, which is tremendous, and leaves Winnick, you know, kind of stumbling away. She does not, you know, continue to attack him. It was at the same time a well-deserved shot that Lee got on Winnick before he got away, so he did not get away totally unscathed. What starts to happen is there's some fighting on the balcony. The party is sort of figuring out what they're going to do, if they're going to engage in melee. There are several sort of fights that go on at this point. An entangle spell from the druid. You can kind of see the party is kind of focusing on the fire knives who are entering through the eastern side of the corridor, and so there are several attacks here. We've got some missile weapons flying at them. We've got other things happening there as well. A couple of misses, a couple of hits. Definitely kind of hitting the heat of battle here, and I'm not doing it justice. It pains me to not have this session recorded of all sessions. So, but you know, again, I was very humbled to have this experience. It was fantastic. Cadison went invisible. He cast an invisibility spell. One of the first actions he took. He begins to kind of plot or realize that the party is in a lot of trouble in this position, and he starts to call out for the party to get out of the building and move towards the eastern corridor. So even though they can't see him, they can hear him, and they're taking his command and suggestion to heart and heading in that direction. He begins to do so as well, and I believe this is where he casts a wall of ice. And so the blue line there was the shape of the continuous wall of ice that surrounded these two remaining fire knives that were in the doorway. With this wall now erected, the party has kind of isolated some of the threat, more battling going on, Ronnie tumbling past some of the threat. There is still like a fire knife here outside of the ice wall who's attacking. Wizard Kurza decides to pull out his wand and transmute rock to mud. So that ends up being a hugely impactful move that collapses this southern balcony. You'll see the area of effect of this, and just this whole area and these pillars all included inside of that area of effect of the wand. You start to see, you know, things bending and falling as that occurs, and obviously continues to help serve the party so that they can get far from the threat and the ambush. The group is sort of starting to head out, but they're being harassed by this one remaining fire knife who's not on the inside of the ice. They get him surrounded and begin to kind of wail on him, and Vitali ultimately finishes him off. At that point, they are able to escape the building and return to the city streets in the 10 Tower district just outside the House of Vespers, where they have to figure out what to do next. And that was the end of session 11. Again, a fantastic session, one of the funnest sessions of virtual gameplay I have ever had. Certainly the most fun one I've ever hosted virtually. Seeing the surprise on the face of my players was irreplaceable, and it's kind of what I live for as a DM, to keep them on the edge of their seat, but to be able to, in this case, kind of give them a gift, if you will, of having an opportunity to play with someone that we all greatly respect in this. Thank you again for those of you who watched. Thank you to my players. Thank you to Kevin Madison on behalf of myself and of the players. It was a tremendous highlight for us.